Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Welcome to episode 78 of the Kinetic Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Will, joined remotely by my good friend, Wes.
Right here I am.
He is at his house. I am at my house, and we are ready for a wonderful Monday hot sheet. How are we doing tonight, bud?
Absolutely great, because Monday's behind us, so that means we're one step closer to Friday.
Absolutely. Or in my case, today was Monday and tomorrow is Friday, but I'm not rubbing that in.
That's good. My next door neighbor, I just ran into him an hour ago. I was outside getting some stuff, and he proceeded to rub it in that he's on vacation all this week. So yeah,
is he on the little spring break action as well?
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Did he have any plans? Was he heading out of town?
I know they go to the beach a lot, so I forgot to ask him because he was actually unloading his groceries out of his car. Yeah, he took the time to let me know that he was on vacation all week long. So that was really, really nice of him.
Yeah, he took the time. I love that. Love that. Well, as always, we want to get started with something good that happened to us since the last time we broadcast, which was last Thursday. What have you got for me?
Is that I keep using the same one for a while now, I guess, but my daughter lost yet another tooth. So
no way.
So she's got like
another one.
She's got like nothing left in front now. So yeah,
she is
top and bottom. She's got
She'll never be a rapper without having her front teeth.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. If she's looking to get, actually now might be a good opportunity to get her fitted for some gold
teeth.
Yeah, something diamond encrusted. I'm really thinking that the white gold with diamond encrusted St. Louis Cardinal symbol.
Yeah,
you like that?
Something like that. Nelly.
So how many is she down now? 6.
No, I think 5. I think that was number 5. But the bottom front teeth are already the new ones. The adult ones are already like halfway in. So she's wasting no time. They're shooting right in real quick. So
well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
The faster she gets those in, the faster just eating. I mean, I'm sure she's kind of complaining about how, this is impacting her life.
It's a little challenge for her, but
absolutely.
She's up for it.
Yeah, well, she didn't. I don't know that she has a choice.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a relatively good thing that happened to me. I made barbecue sauce yesterday, and it's good for me. It's good for others, but mainly I just love the smell of my house when I'm making the barbecue sauce. It is, it's so joyous. And couple that with the fact that I actually put this on Instagram last night with the smoked or the ribs that I had going on the smoker all afternoon yesterday. I was in barbecue heaven. It was outside. I had the oak, going in the smoker, and inside I had the barbecue sauce. Oh, the smells were joyous everywhere I went.
Nice.
Very, very happy about that. And we got a good news story as well that is pretty cool. We've got a cable repair guy that comforted a disabled boy while he was multitasking. He was fixing the internet issues in the house and comforting this boy at the same time. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is in Greenville, South Carolina.
I'm surprised they have cable there.
Yeah, exactly. Mom called the cable company because her internet was down. And so they dispatched a guy to come out there and take a look at it. And she has a 2-year-old, it's a 3-year-old, I think, a 3-year-old son.
3-year-old son, 2-year-old daughter.
That's right. Yeah. And so the 3-year-old son, I guess, has some birth defects. I guess some brain disorders and pretty severe blindness. And therefore, it's hard for him to communicate. He kind of, fusses a lot because he doesn't know how to communicate, basically. But as soon as this guy comes in the house to fix the internet, this kid just latched onto him and ran up and held his arms out. And so this cable guy picked up the kid and was carrying the kid all over the house while he was, trying to troubleshoot the internet. And so the story says is that he held on to the kid and held the kid in his arms for 45 minutes while he was fixing the internet. He never put the kid down the entire time he was there. And got the internet fixed, and he was on his way, but the kid just latched onto him for some reason.
Well, I guess when he walked in the door, the kid just held his hands open, and if he was blind, he might not have known who it was, but I thought that was pretty cool for him to, that would be a relatively tricky situation in that, you walk in, you don't know how a child is going to react to a stranger or anything like that. So to
Right.
have him to just put everything down, take the kid in his arms, and then on top of that, go through and do all the work that he did with the child in his arms is
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah. No
I
kidding.
guess he was on Good Morning America as well, and
Yeah.
was very gracious, basically saying that, you know, the family is the true heroes here. All he did was be a good human, which in this day and age, we're always, you know, wishing that we would get more good stories. And that's why we do this stuff, is so
Yeah.
that we can show that there really are good people out there. And I guess that Twitter is the main reason that we think that no one is good, right?
That's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the hot sheet here. The first one on the docket is the story that continues to, you know, control the news cycle for the most part, and that's that the Attorney General has decided that Congress will get the full Mueller report within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and so now the big question is how many redactions there are going to be. I mean, how much reading between the lines do you have to do, and how much is going to be blacked out and that kind of stuff. But I mean, at least this will. I'm sure there's still going to be naysayers even after this goes down, but at least everybody is now frothing at the mouth, calling for the full report to be released. So now it will be released in the next couple of weeks, and so I'm sure they'll find something else to complain about after that happens.
Well, life wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't have life if we can complain in 2019.
That's
The
right.
big thing is going to be whether they can convince the, if they can convince the judge that there's precedent for releasing the full report unredacted with the grand jury information. And that is going to be the big deal in this whole fight, is going to be whether they get the report without redactions. And I really like that there was no privileged review for the White House. Not
Yeah.
that it has
Yeah.
anything to do that it's politically motivated, but mainly this is for the American people, not for the president. This
Yeah.
is for us, and this is for the, you know, senators and congressmen and women out there that are out there to help, you know, dice through all this stuff, figure out what exactly is going on. We spent a lot of money on
Yeah.
this, and we deserve to see exactly
Right.
what happened and
Right.
what they found.
Absolutely. Yeah. Transparency is definitely what's needed here to try to put all this garbage to bed. You know, that's the only way to do it. So,
well, I don't know that it's going to go to bed. Do you?
yeah. Yeah. Like I said, they'll come up with something. Obviously, that's, if, you know, they'll spin it their own little way, or they'll latch onto something new to try to, you know, crow about. So, time will tell. Yeah.
And they're, you know, now they're getting down to eating their own. Going a little bit off the rundown here, all the stories about Joe Biden today and the conspiracy theory that Bernie is the one that was responsible for this hit job on him.
Okay.
I'm not talking about the actual incident in question with Biden, but the fact that the big theory, you know, kind of ruminating around the internet, is that Bernie put his full force into pushing this story to help, because I guess Bernie has more money than all of the other candidates combined. And so he's putting his full force because he sees Biden as his own, you know, I mean, legitimate,
the biggest rival. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have a story like this, and it's been really interesting to see the response to a lot of these articles, a lot of things that folks are saying, and the support that you're seeing from people that you may not see, you know, that you wouldn't think would be supportive of Biden. And then on the flip side, the people that have been absolutely eviscerated him.
Yeah. And it's obviously all for political gain, because a lot of the people that are coming out against him, like you said, with the conspiracy theory with Bernie, but a lot of people are the other presidential candidates who are vying for the nomination. They'd just as soon see one of their own go down to clear the path a little more for them. But this is not, this specific incident in question, as it relates to Biden, is not the only one. There have been countless pictures published over the years of him getting really touchy-feely with women, and not even, you know, behind the scenes. I mean, like on the stage in front of a huge audience, he gets really handsy. So I mean, he's got a big issue. Whether or not it's you know, a purposeful, it could just be negligent. He's just too dumb to know. But still, that's a really bad look to have these numerous incidents that have happened over the years.
Absolutely, but don't we think that Clinton kind of had the same type of issues back when he was,
Oh, certainly,
president? And not, I
certainly.
mean,
But now
remove the
the
Lewinsky out of everything. He was a very, I mean, it was always, kind of discussed that he was pretty touchy feely, and I wouldn't say aggressive with the opposite sex, but he certainly had no problems
yeah,
with them.
but I think it's obviously a different age we live in now with the SJWs out there looking to harpoon anybody they can for stepping out of line. So it's I think this could spell serious trouble for Biden. So
Yeah.
if they really want to press this issue with all the stuff that's gone on with all the the Weinsteins and all those characters, all this stuff that's gone on over the last year about they're doing all this zero tolerance and basically excommunicating everybody that tries to pull these stunts. This could be trouble for Biden. This will be interesting to see what happens here.
Absolutely. And everyone needs to be, held accountable for their actions. If you make somebody feel uncomfortable by the way you act towards them or anything like that, you should be that should be handled. But it's the timing of these things that
Right.
is the big problem that I have. I mean, if he makes somebody, a woman or a man for that matter, feel uncomfortable, then yes, he needs to be called on the carpet and he needs to be dealt with accordingly. But it sounds like this is something that has been occurring for a long, long time. They just chose now to really, really push it to the forefront of the news cycle.
Yeah, and like I said, because there have been photographs going back through the years of him doing this exact same thing, and it was always just kind of a ha ha little joke kind of a thing. And full well if he would have never come back to announce his candidacy that he was interested in running for the president, this would have never come up. This would have just been buried, and it would have just gone along their way. So the
Why
only
didn't it? Why wasn't it brought up more when he was vice president? You think?
It's a very interesting question. I don't know. Again, I think that was pre whatever the believe all women movement, the pre Kavanaugh. I think Kavanaugh was the thing that set everything over the edge, all that circus and stuff like that. Well, I guess it was before Kavanaugh with Harvey Weinstein and those characters. But I think even you talk about Clinton and that being so long ago, and that wasn't really looked at. But even more recently, when Biden was the vice president, I don't think that was looked upon all that, with a microscope like it is now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, to be clear, we certainly aren't condoning his actions and the way he has, if he has done these types of things. Again, these are all accounts from people that have made accusations. We don't know whether they're true or not, but there certainly are, like you said, a lot of photographs out there that would lend credence to what they're saying.
Right.
It's a matter of having a reasonable discussion and not just skipping to the gallows, which we seem to do now. With it's an accusation and then death.
Right.
Via internet. And
right. Yeah.
And he acknowledged the issue. He said that he never intended to make anyone feel bad or anything like that. But this day and age, that doesn't count for anything.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
you have to be strung up. But
right.
It's and we all know people that are like that. That are, I mean, I certainly know, whether it's guys and gals, both sides of the spectrum, that are little, they're just a little off, a little too touchy feely. Whether it's because you're married or they're married, whatever it might be, or a guy that just, he's like the extra hugger, and you can tell that people get, and I've been in that position where I've had comments made to me, and I'm like, okay, this is really not right. And I mean, going back to when I was much younger, in my late teens, early 20s, I can remember a specific incident when I worked at LJC, and a lady in there made me feel really, really like super uncomfortable by the things she was saying. And so you gotta listen, but you also have to have a mindful discussion about how these things are going to be handled in the media and on the national stage, because there are far more people out there that have been accused of far greater things that get off scot-free because of their association, their money, whatever it might be. So
right. Yep.
Well, number two here was, we kind of belabored that a little bit. it looks like president is looking to cut aid to Central America due to the caravans that are reportedly heading north.
And this is interesting because it kind of cuts both ways. This is specifically, he's cutting direct aid to El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, because that's where a lot of these migrant waves are coming from. They're coming from Central America up through Mexico and into the United States. But the other side of the coin is, with all the unrest in Venezuela, he had previously been partnering with some of these nations to try to support the opposition to Maduro in Venezuela. So, and you know, on one side of the coin, he was using these countries to help not overthrow, but I mean help kind of maybe force Maduro out. But now he's going to cut off aid to these countries too. So it's, you know, it's kind of cutting both ways. It's kind of interesting deal.
I'm not a fan of this. And this is why there are. This is not a simple black and white situation. Our interest in Central America and the stability of that region is very, very important to many U.S. interests. It's not just about caravans of people moving north. It's not just about Maduro. It's not about any of that. There's drugs involved. There's billions of dollars. And the thought of closing the U.S. border is, I mean, that just blows my mind that we're even discussing that, don't you think?
Yeah, it is interesting. And I heard today that they are reallocating border resources to certain weak points to try to beef them up with more personnel in anticipation of this next wave of migrants coming. Another interesting side note that I read a couple of days ago in preparation for this story is the former DHS secretary under Obama, Jay Johnson, actually came out and, without explicitly saying in so many words, he agreed with Trump, saying that there is a crisis at the border, saying that this is way more serious than anything he ever dealt with under Obama. So I found that quite stunning, that here is an Obama cabinet member coming out and defending Kirstjen Nielsen, the current DHS secretary, and kind of going along with what Trump's saying, that he's agreeing that, yes, this is an emergency and this is out of control. And the article, I wish maybe they did ask him and they just didn't publish it in the article, but I wish I would have liked to see somebody ask him what he would have done if he were the current DHS secretary right now, what would be his course of action. He said although I think he did say something like he wasn't a fan of building a wall, but he was a fan of, you know, really militarizing and beefing up the border with extra personnel to keep people out. So, like I said, I just found it pretty interesting that an Obama cabinet member came out and kind of supported what's going on with Trump. I mean, the stuff that Trump is having to do and wanting to do. So,
absolutely, and I, you know, there definitely is an issue at the border. That is not. I don't think that can even be debated at this point.
Right.
Our facilities are being overrun. If we have 20,000 plus people heading our way to a number of different points of entry, we need to be able to deal with these things. So there absolutely needs to be resources available. Here's a conspiracy for you, though. What if we are actually behind this in order to help push funds and resources towards the wall? Because this is awfully convenient that this, I mean, obviously it's just a conspiracy theory, and I like to, you know, play around with that kind of stuff. But I mean, some of the other stuff that's out there, there's timing involved. There's all of these, you know, different factors that we need to take into account. And do I honestly believe that? No.
Right.
But, you know, these types of things, you know, truth is stranger than fiction.
Yep.
And to think that that isn't at least plausible is, you know, you've got to think outside the box. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the reasoning why, you know, things continue to get worse, they push the fuel to feed the fire that is the border discussion. And I'm not necessarily, and I've been on record of saying, I'm not necessarily behind some long wall as the end all be all for our border issues. It's a comprehensive problem that needs to have a multifaceted approach in order to handle it correctly. And the constant rhetoric about one object being the wall is not it's disingenuous at best, in my opinion, because it's not covering all of the different bases. Things being drugs, being people, being whatever it is that we're trying to protect ourselves from, don't just come over land.
Right.
There are a lot of different ways that, whether it's subterranean, whether it's in the air, whether it's in the water, or through a point of entry, all of these things need to be looked at in a comprehensive fashion. And we know that a wall is not going to stop them, because we have fences, walls, and things of that nature in place already, and it is not stopping it.
Right. And you mentioned a good thing. One of the things I always think is the biggest weakness is the waterway, is our coastline, because yes, we have all these different ports for commercial goods and shipping and stuff coming in, but how many gajillion of miles of just regular barren coastline do we have, up and down the East Coast and West Coast, where there's no population there. It's just kind of out in the sticks, and anybody could kind of raft ashore there and just, slip away into the night kind of thing. So I think that the coastline is at least big of a threat as the actual land border on the south.
Absolutely. And with the ingenuity of the cartels, whenever there's money involved, they will always find a way to circumvent whatever ways that law enforcement is trying to impact their ability to cross the border. So, we've seen that they have built numerous submarines. They will fly 737s in and just leave them.
Yep.
All they have to do is pass the cost along to the customer. And honestly, the customer, when it comes to drugs, is more than willing to continue to pay.
Right. Yep.
An extra $5 a gram for cocaine, you got it. And that $5 then pays for $1 million, $1 million submarine, boat, whatever it might be. I mean, look at the container ships that come in. There's no way that we can physically inspect every single one of those container ships to make sure that they don't have 30 tons of cocaine on them or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these different ways that we can get, and that they have proven that they get the drugs in. The amount of drugs that comes in directly from Colombia. I mean, look what Pablo Escobar did, and that was why he was able to be so successful. The same thing with El Chapo is that they know how to distribute. They don't make the drugs; they distribute the drugs, and that precision that they operate with is what put them over the top and their ruthlessness. I mean, we can't take that away from them. They got where they were through raw violence, but they knew how to move things. They knew what palms to grease and things, all of those things. So it's I don't know. It's not going to be an end all be all with a wall. That could be a T-shirt, couldn't it? Next up on the is that you got anything else on that?
No, go right ahead.
Number 3 is Jussie Smollett. His case is for a few minutes we got a break from the wall, from the report, from all of that, because all 16 charges were dropped by Chicago. Now there's other stuff pending, but
so there's potential federal stuff, but man, I have never seen the anger like out of Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, the former chief of staff under Obama during his tenure. He came out and just blasted the prosecuting attorney for dropping stuff, as did the police commissioner, I believe it was. And
did you see, on top of that though, the Illinois Bar Association come after her?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was the pinnacle of it. When your bar association basically just skewers you.
Yeah. And one interesting thing I read, and it was a high profile attorney. It wasn't Dershowitz, but it was another high profile attorney. They asked him, why in the world would you have these 16 charges, felony counts that he was indicted on? How what would make them drop all 16 charges like it never even happened? What would cause them to do this? And he said he has no inside info, but the only thing he can think of as to why they would have dropped these charges is somebody else of note was wrapped up into this, that they found out was involved in this, and he was highly connected to in the political circles, and weaseled his way in there and got them to drop the charges. So he's basically, his best guess is that there was somebody else in on this with Smollett and with these other two guys that was a high profile person, either celebrity or politician or whatever, and he was able to weasel his way into the inner workings and convince them to drop this so he didn't get outed. So that's really kind of a little conspiracy theory, but it's interesting that this attorney came out and said that's the only reason he could think of is you've got basically a cut and dry case. So how do you go from it basically being a done deal to all of a sudden dropping all the charges? And that's the only thing he could think of that would have caused them to do that.
I had read a few opinions that it wasn't that far of a stretch for a normal person in the circumstances of just the false reporting side. The big problem I have is that the other thing that I read along with that was when it is such a high profile case, then it becomes very, very a much different thing. It is not just your run of the mill case that's going to get swept underneath the rug. And so for this situation, and we also have the federal charges that are still pending for the mail, the mailing of the letters and things like that. My problem is that you're supposed to basically apologize for your actions when you do something like this, and they double, triple, and quadruple down the day after the charges were dropped and said they may actually sue the city of Washougal wow. The city of Chicago for bringing these charges about because he was an innocent man. My goodness, it takes some cojones to step up to the microphone and say that.
And then they turned the table. I think it was Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, that said that they're going to send him the bill for the investigation. I think it was like 130,000, 130, I think. Yeah, $130,000 that they blew on this investigation, and they want to have him on the hook for that.
And yeah, that as well they should. But this guy, first he gets a sweetheart deal. He gets his charges dropped for something that is, I mean, I know he has not been proven, beyond a reasonable doubt in front of a jury of his peers, but there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that he did make these false claims. In fact, he had two accomplices that were involved and basically said that.
Right.
He was willing to let someone or a couple of individuals take the fall for this, and with no concern for their well-being. That is where I have the biggest problem in all of this. Yes, people make mistakes, they do dumb stuff, but and the other big argument was that it was a victimless crime. If you are trying to insinuate that another person did this to you, and you go as far as to go on the national television show and put up a photograph of two people that you believe were involved in what happened, you're trying to get those people arrested and greatly impact their life, if not ruin it.
Right.
And for you to come out and then say, "Oh, I'm innocent and I'm going to sue and this, that, or the other because of a sweetheart deal from the DA in Chicago," I mean, this is just reeks of all kinds of inappropriateness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope that they end up, that I've never read a statement from a bar association about a district attorney that, I mean, it was surgical.
Yeah.
The takedown, and so incredibly well written. There was no malice or anything. They just line by line destroyed her.
Yeah.
And so I was, hopefully there is an investigation and they find out that there was impropriety because, again, need to be held accountable for your actions.
Right.
That's what it boils down to. So
we'll
see what happens. Number 4, we have mortgage rates. We talked about this the other day. Dropped the biggest amount in a decade, a weekly drop in a decade.
Yeah, so that's pretty huge. The article states that a 30-year fixed mortgage dropped by 22 basis points, down to 4.06%. And then the 15-year rate, I believe, was down by about 14 points.
So is it like 387 or something like that?
357 on the 15-year. Yeah, so that's pretty significant. You're talking the biggest weekly drop in a decade. It's a pretty major event.
Yeah, and that's going to segue into our number 5. I think we can kind of put these two together, and that the overall, and number 5 being the White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow, quote unquote, asking the Fed to drop its overnight rates by 0.5 point.
Yeah, and he's saying that he believes it should be done immediately, cutting it by 0.5 point. And I don't know. What do you think on that?
I think that from the finance universe that I follow and I read about, not a lot, but I daily definitely at least get the reaction of people that I think are in the know and are good people to get a real honest answer from. And the consensus that I found is that would be a mistake. But my big concern is that the White House should never be getting involved in anything that the Fed does.
Right.
The Fed is supposed to be independent. It is not supposed to have politicians poking their dirty little fingers into policy decisions that affect 350 million people plus the rest of the world.
Right.
Yes, economies around the world are starting to show signs of slowing, but that does not mean that we immediately go running and we by some crazy, I guess I'm totally screwed up the way I want to say it, but we can't just make some kind of rash decision. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
We can't just say, okay, well, we've got a 1/4 of what the market is doing, and now we need to go run and cut rates. Well, when you do that, it's going to, just for the short term anyway, because that's what they're looking at. They're looking at next year for 2020 for the campaign season to keep the economy going. And we're starting to see, as we talked about with the bond yield inversions, that we're seeing signs of the market telling us that there could be a slowdown coming soon. And it's something that we need to be very aware of, but we need to trust the people that are in leadership positions that are very smart. And I'm not saying that Kudlow isn't smart, because he is, but you can't just be a mouthpiece for the president. Right. Kudlow spent many, many years preaching on CNBC about good monetary policy. He can't think that by running and dropping the overnight rate by 0.5 point will solve some oncoming crisis. All it will do is further that crisis, but just kick the ball down the road a little bit in the form of inflation.
Right. Yeah. Now that was kind of interesting to note too, that this came on the heels of the Fed saying that they were not going to raise rates, so they were just going to hold it as is. And then he came in and doubled down and said, that he thinks that they should cut the rates. So holding the rate steady wasn't good enough. He wanted them to cut it. So
and that was a complete change from what the Fed had said at their last meeting, I believe in December of 2018, that they were actually going to raise rates twice in 2019.
Right.
But after the economic data came out and they had their last meeting, they decided to change their policy and go to a hold. So they're not going to raise, they're not going to lower them. They're going to keep them where they are, because we still have a very strong economy in the United States. Things are moving along well. Mortgages just got cheaper, and we're not seeing a huge slowdown on the sale of cars, which is what the overnight rate will have impacted. Lowering or raising the overnight rate does not have a direct impact on mortgage rates. But to the point of rates going down for mortgages, that is going to help fuel the coming spring and summer real estate markets, in my opinion. If anything, though, this is something actually I was talking about in a meeting earlier today. A concern that I have is that if we have continued low rates and we're starting to get it's starting to slowly come about, but that's articles and stories about a possibility of a slowdown in the economy. What that does is it gets people, it causes not pandemonium, but people start to get scared, and it changes their economic decisions, whether it's buying a car, buying a house, or buying a PlayStation 4. Whether that be, I'm going to go out and get it right now because my cost of borrowing may go up in the near future, or I'm not going to buy that because I'm going to hold on to my money, or I'm not going to buy that house. What I think we could see, though, is that this summer we see a lot of people jumping at the opportunity to buy and sell real estate.
Right.
They see that these rates are still low. Oh no, there could be a drop in the housing market. But then you also have to think, well, if I buy now, am I buying at the absolute peak and I'm going to take a bath next year?
Right.
And I'm not talking about locally here. I'm talking about nationwide.
Right.
We have a completely different economy here in Portland, Clark County, Washington, and Oregon in general, because we are destination locations for people to live. We're not Cleveland. No offense to Cleveland, but you're not moving there because of the sights and the beauty. You are moving to a place that is 2 hours from damn near any form of recreation outdoors that you want. From a mountain to the oceans to Seattle, Portland, great food, all of those things within a couple of hour drive.
Right.
And a great tax situation in Washington. Yeah, great schools up here. All of those things really help to reinforce our economy. So I don't think you're going to see the downturn here. And on top of all that is that we don't have the crazy loans, the subprime stuff that we had back in 2008, 2009, affecting the books of the banks and things like that. We're not going to have we don't have these loan programs where you have stated income. You tell the bank that you make 450 grand a year and you actually work at the Quick Stop or something like that.
Right. And they were doing that basically with no verification, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've told this story a number of times, but I had a janitor, made $17 an hour. He had $1 million line of credit on a stated income.
Wow.
And that was, that's his deal. I don't get involved in any of that kind of stuff. In fact, he came to me after he had his financing in line and all that. And to some degree, I mean, not that I am condoning his actions, taking out a loan that he can't afford to pay, but somebody gave it to him. An underwriter somewhere decided, and a big wig at JP Morgan or wherever it was that ends up owning these notes, decided that this is a good path to make money. We'll give people that just artificially inflate numbers. We'll give them whatever they ask for, and that's obviously didn't prove to be a very worthwhile.
Yeah.
Worthwhile policy at those banks.
Right. No kidding.
But I just, and we did learn from that. But, as you and I have talked, the standard for the government is to go in and overcorrect, make things much harder than they need to be, barriers to entry much higher, things like that. And then there ultimately becomes a cost for all those things, whether it's appraisals now, instead of costing $400 to $500, cost $800 to $1,200, just because of the regulations that were placed upon appraisers from the last downturn.
Wow. So
all of these things are things that folks that are in just anyone that participates in the economy as a working adult, something like that, they got to think about these things. And the main thing, though, is that you can't just constantly give in to the fear. You've got to look at the facts behind all of these things. Every economy has a cycle. Things go up, things go down, but that doesn't mean that what happened last time is going to happen this time. Just because we took a huge dumpster fire in 2010 and 11 does not mean that if we have a downturn, it's going to be on the same level. Look at it, act accordingly, be cautious, and we'll all survive. As they say in the gambling community, the sun will come up tomorrow.
That's right.
But no, I just, to go back to the Fed and the demand for a rate cut, I love how Kudlow, in the article that we were talking about here, was quick to say that, oh, well, the White House isn't getting involved. We didn't, make that kind of assertion. And baloney, you did. If you're going to go out on a national platform, news, print, whatever it might be, and make those statements, who are you speaking to?
Right, exactly.
Who do you think is going to be listening?
Right.
It is going to be construed as a direct or a directive towards the Fed from the White House to impact monetary policy because of a decision from the president.
Right.
Can't be done.
Yep.
Fed needs to operate on their own.
Yep.
Got anything else?
I got nothing. I think we're good.
We got another good show. Time sure flies, though. We're at 9:17. That's 35 minutes, somewhere around there. So this week, we will have to do another remote broadcast because I will be at the beach on Thursday.
Okay.
So we will work that out on, and it will happen to be my wife's birthday.
Nice.
So she is 1 year closer to 40, but I didn't say that out loud. So we'll see if she actually listens to this.
That's right. I'll be in less than 3 months. So
yeah, exactly right.
4-0.
I know, you can see it in your five
head.
Got to give a shout out. Wrote a review on the website today, kineticchaos.com, for the new Washougal Times restaurant. If you're in the Clark County, this area, it was a good restaurant. Go check out the review. Did a short video on it. I will say I did make that video after I had a couple of cocktails, and they possibly made the world's strongest margarita. Wow. It was, as I say in the article, it was well, they were very generous.
A heavy pour.
Heavy. Very, very generous. So I had a big smile on my face. I wasn't feeling any pain, but I didn't curse or anything like that. So I consider that a win, right?
There you go.
So, well, we will catch everyone on the flip side. Hope you have a wonderful week. Don't work too hard, but be grateful. And you got anything else, bud?
I got nothing.
Okay. We will see you guys later.
Have a good one.
Here we go.